All right, so I know what you're thinking. Yes, oats can be boring and get boring really, really fast. And yes, I know I should be eating them, but I don't know how to get creative with them. Well, I have a treat for you today. I have 4 oat recipes that will transform the way that you think about oats and oatmeal. I'm giving you breakfast, lunch, dinner, solid, liquid, all different ways to transform your oats, and hopefully you learn a couple of tips and tricks along the way so that you can get creative with oats and make these recipes your own. So the first recipe that I want to share with you are blueberry lemon cashew overnight oats. These are a really easy breakfast item to make. So in a saucepan, combine 1 pint of blueberries, the zest of 1 lemon, as well as the juice of the entire lemon. Then you'll want to add 3 tablespoons of a sweetener, so that could be maple syrup or monk fruit. And then that's it. You'll just stir it over medium heat until the liquid starts coming out from the blueberries. You can smash them like I'm doing here, and then it will get a little bit thicker as you continue stirring and cooking. Remove from the heat and let it refrigerate overnight. The night before you serve, you also want to soak 1/3 cup of oats in 2/3 cup of water, add a little bit of salt, and let it thicken overnight. You can add cinnamon either the night before or the day of. And then to the soaked oats, also add 2 tablespoons of soaked chia seeds. So this was soaked in about 4 tablespoons of water. You'll add the blueberry lemon compote on top. You can always add a little bit of tapioca starch to thicken it up, or leave it more liquidy like I did here. To top it all off, you can add a nut butter of your choosing. I decided to go with a cashew butter. It pairs really nicely with all the flavors that are in this overnight oat parfait. It has a really mild flavor and a smooth texture, so it goes nicely with the crunchiness of the chia seeds and the tanginess of the blueberries. And that's pretty much it. It can turn this beautiful lavender color once you start mixing it together, or you can leave it layered just like this. This would be a really delicious breakfast food or as an afternoon snack, especially on a hot summer day. Next, I'm going to show you how to make this mushroom spinach savory oatmeal. I bet you haven't tried this kind of flavor oatmeal before. So one trick to cutting really small even pieces of an onion is to slice it in half, take the skin off, and then create small slices while keeping the bottom part of the bulb intact. Then you're going to cut perpendicular lines through those strips right until you get to the end of the bulb, and then you can remove and throw away the bulb. You're going to add the onion to a large skillet over medium heat, and I'm going to show you how to cook without any oil. You can throw the onion straight into the pan, and then you're going to take a couple of tablespoons of water, and while the pan is hot, it's going to create a lot of steam. Don't worry, it will eventually evaporate and it won't mess up your pan. This is a great way to remove some of the fat calories from cooking with oil. Next, you're going to add about 200 grams of white sliced mushrooms. And you'll want to cook this mixture down until most of the moisture from the onions and the mushrooms have evaporated. Continue stirring the veggies for about 5 to 10 minutes until they shrink into almost half its size. And if you notice the veggies are sticking to the pan, you can always add more water, and it will start deglazing the pan. Once the onions and mushrooms have shrunken in size, you're going to add 4 strips of tempeh bacon. I'm using the Light Life brand, and this is going to add a lot of flavor and smokiness to the dish. I chopped it up into small strips so that it will resemble bacon bits. So you'll want to stir this up and then cook the tempeh until it becomes slightly brown. Next, you'll want to add 1 clove of chopped garlic, and you'll want to cook this just for a minute. Garlic burns really fast, so you'll want to cook until you start smelling the garlic in the steam. Just mix it together and then let it brown for a little bit. Then you're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. Don't worry, I'll put all of the ingredients in the blog post linked below. Finally, you're going to wilt 100 grams of baby spinach in the pan. You're going to let this sit on top of the mushroom and onion, and then cover with the lid until the leaves are wilted. So about less than 5 minutes. If there are some crisp leaves after a couple of minutes, you can always just mix it in, put the mushroom and onion on top, and let the steam wilt the spinach. Remove from heat and then get a small saucepan. Now we're going to cook the oats. Get 2/3 cup of oats rolled and double the amount of water. You're going to heat this over medium heat until the oats start to thicken. You can add a little pinch of salt for seasoning. Then you'll want to add a 1/4 teaspoon of tomato paste. This is going to give the oatmeal a really nice red color and a savory flavor. You're going to let that boil until it becomes nice and thick and you'll see little bubbles forming. And then you're going to take your mushroom onion tempeh mixture and incorporate all of that into the oats. And that's pretty much it. You can just stir the mixture until it is well blended and serve onto a plate. This should serve 2 people or 1 hungry person. You can top it with sliced avocado, salsa, and nutritional yeast for either a savory breakfast or a lunch. Next, I'm going to show you how to make a really creamy, sweet oat milk. You'll only need a few simple ingredients, and this is great with coffee or alongside cookies. So you're going to want to take about 1 cup of oats. This is going to yield about 2 cups of oat milk. And then you're going to put it into a cup that is tall enough to fit both the oats and 2 to 2.5 cups of cold water. Now, the cold water is key to prevent the oat milk from becoming slimy. You want to add that a little bit at a time so it doesn't splash everywhere. And what you're going to do is you can either blend it in a traditional blender, or I'm going to use a immersion blender. Now this is optional, but you can add 1 tablespoon of maple syrup and 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. All right, now for my secret ingredient, what I like to add to make it a little bit creamier is 1 tablespoon of melted coconut oil. That coconut oil is going to give it some additional sweetness and also make it really creamy. Add a little pinch of salt as well to enhance the flavor. And you're going to blend all of that up with your blender or immersion blender. I'm using the Kiosk brand, and I got this from Amazon, so I can put the link in the description. You're going to blend the entire mixture until you see a little bit of foam forming and all of the oats are blended into the liquid and well incorporated. That means there's no large chunks that are hanging out in the mixture. With the immersion blender, what I like to do is push the head of the blender up and down until all of the oats are blended into the water. So this may take a couple of minutes. If you're using the immersion blender, you'll want to safely remove the blender from the glass. And then what I have here is a small bowl with a cheesecloth. Now, a cheesecloth is basically a fabric that has small little holes in the middle so that you can squeeze the liquid and separate it from the oat pulp. I can also link that in the description where I got it from. Now, you're going to be tempted to squeeze the bag with your palm and hand, but you'll see I made a big mess doing that. So one secret tip and technique that I can share with you is to twist the cloth just like this
and continue twisting downward towards the pulp so that you get all of the liquid with no mess. And once you feel like you have gotten as much liquid as you can from the oat mixture, you can set aside the cheesecloth and pulp. Now don't throw the pulp away because that's going to actually be an ingredient in our last recipe that's coming up. But first, to package the oat milk. So you can take any sort of mason jar like I did here, or other container, and carefully pour the oat milk into the container. This should stay fresh for up to a week. You'll want to make sure that it is covered, so I will cover it with a mason jar lid. Now, that's it. You will notice when you put it in the fridge and then open it the next morning that the liquid might separate a little bit. Don't freak out, that doesn't mean it has gone bad. It's just because the water and the oats have separated naturally. You can just shake it up like this and it will become nice and frothy for you to consume or put into your coffee like I'm doing here. I just mixed some espresso with the milk. And what's nice is, again, when you shake it, it gives it a little bit of a froth. Alright, for our final recipe, I'm going to show you how to make cookies by using oat flour, and that's going to be homemade oat flour, and it's really easy. This is my own recipe that I came up with. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the pulp from the oat milk that you made, so that was again 1 cup of oats that was blended, and you're going to mash 1 ripe banana with the oats. Now, the browner the banana, the sweeter the cookies are going to be. I didn't have a very ripe banana when I was making this batch, so it wasn't as sweet as it could have been. What you can do is you can just take a fork and mash it like so with the oat pulp until it becomes nice and liquidy. The cool thing about mashing bananas is that it becomes a little bit sweeter and it releases its sugars when you mash it. Now we're going to, after mashing this, mix the rest of the wet ingredients into this bowl, starting with 1 flax egg. So this is made by using 1 tablespoon of ground flax seeds with 3 tablespoons of water. You let it mix and sit for 5 minutes before adding it to the mixture. Then you're going to add 1 tablespoon of melted coconut oil. And then you'll want to add 1 tablespoon of maple syrup to sweeten the cookies. You are more than welcome to use non-calorie sweetener like stevia or monk fruit if you want to reduce the calories. Here I put 1 tablespoon of maple syrup and then 1 tablespoon of monk fruit to cut the calories for this cookie. You're more than welcome to just use 2 tablespoons of maple syrup if you don't have monk fruit on hand. Finally, you're going to add 1 tablespoon of cashew butter. You are more than welcome to use any type of nut butter for this. I'm just using cashew butter because that's what I had. And then you're gonna mix all of these wet ingredients until it forms a wet lump like this one. You don't want it too runny because then the cookies might fall out of shape. Alright, you can set that aside, and now we're going to move on to the dry ingredients. We're going to take 1 cup of old-fashioned rolled oats and put it into a food processor. This is a cool food processor attachment that I got with my kiosk blender. You're going to blend that until it becomes a really fine, grainy texture, just like flour. So you don't want it too lumpy, otherwise it won't be able to absorb any of the liquid or dry ingredients. Then you're going to add nutmeg, cinnamon, baking powder, and salt. The measurements are in the blog post linked below, and you can just gently stir that in. What's nice about this cookie recipe is that it's naturally gluten-free because oats are gluten-free. Alright, so now we just have to mix the wet and the dry ingredients together. So I'll just put it into the same bowl and mix it with a fork until it is well incorporated. I'll show you what the mixture looks like here before, and then once I start stirring afterwards. The oat flour should be absorbing all of the moisture from the banana, the flax egg, and the vanilla and other things. Then you can take 2 spoons and form 6 cookies. I realize that this is a pretty small batch. But this is perfect portion size for 1 to 2 people, or for yourself just for 1 or 2 days. You can always double the amount if you need to. And as you can see here, I am adding dark chocolate squares right on top. These will melt really nicely. These are 88% dark chocolate. And we're going to put this in a 350-degree oven for about 17 minutes. You'll see when it's done, it becomes a nice, moist cookie with the dark chocolate that melts right on top.
And there you have it, 4 recipes that you can try with oats. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I have lots of other videos on my YouTube channel about other ways that you can eat vegan. For example, I have a video on vegan dairy substitutes that I'll link right here. I really appreciate it again if you like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.